It is the most dramatic footage ever taken of any of the world's mythical or legendary monsters. It was taken on amateur home video in 1966, and to this day has stood out as the clearest evidence of the existence of Sasquatch, the giant Bigfoot of America's far northwest. Afternoon, but two, and they scared the daylights out of him.
Oh, God.
It's like a little 5-year-old. I was crying, and I asked the man upstairs, you know, I said, hey, if you let me get out of here alive, I'll never bother these critters again, and I'm not going to.
The creature appeared suddenly as Freeman was walking along a bush track toward a watering hole where he'd spotted footprints.
Yeah, it looks like they've been here. I just walked around to where the spring runs into the pond, and there were tracks in the mud, and still muddy. It hadn't even settled yet, so I said, gee, Merry Christmas. You know, one's already been here. It just must have run out of here.
Suddenly, there it was.
I hear the brush popping and stuff.
Oh, there he goes.
Well, the big one I first filmed looked like it was about 7.5, 8 feet tall and weighed 700 pounds. And then I lost it in the bush, and I was looking with my camera, and I seen this little one that's coming right at me.
Oh, God. There's two of them, I guess.
The startling video is being studied by scientists at Oregon and Northern California universities, but to some, it did.
There are many thousands of reports of people who claim to have seen the Sasquatches. Most of these are very consistent, and I'm inclined to believe that people are seeing a perfectly real wild animal. Sasquatch appears to be a bipedal animal walking on two legs in a human manner, but with the body usually tilted a little forward at the hips. The body size ranges from about 6 to perhaps 9 feet in height. Body weight of an adult is anywhere from 500 to 800 pounds or a little bit more. The Sasquatch is always described as being covered with hair, perhaps 2 to 4 inches long. Color is usually very dark brown or black, and very rarely reddish or other lighter colors have been reported. The appearance of the arms hanging down to the knees is not because the arms are any longer down, but the way it walks, raising its knees very high. There are a few interesting things about the Sasquatch face. It's more human than ape in the sense that the mouth does not protrude like a gorilla. The nose is relatively flat and wide. The brow ridges are very prominent, and above that the forehead is very retreating, and that's an ape-like characteristic. What's also interesting is that if I stand or hold myself in a normal posture, my mouth and chin are above the level of my shoulders. That's a standard human. Apes, however, have the shoulders up like this, and the mouth is below the level of the shoulders. The same is true of the Sasquatch. So if a Sasquatch wants to turn his head, he can only go so far before he runs into his shoulders. And like the apes, they either tip their head back to look, or they twist the entire body to look.
Now, everyone has looked at cryptozoology as a study in odd or extinct, maybe even rare species. And some think that it's a pseudoscience. Well, everything was a pseudoscience at one time. Nothing unchecked. The idea that there was gigantic squids in the bottom of the sea was just a pseudoscience, but lo and behold, there are giant squids at the bottom of the sea. So everything at one time was a pseudoscience. Even the best laid plans of many scientists ended up to go into the trash, and then they started all over again. Somewhere out there, they declared it was a science, and so everyone just believed it. I don't know where they get those ideas. But anyway, tonight, it'll be Bigfoot. Bigfoot is a strange species, that's true. Some people say Bigfoot is in somewhere in our ancient past, somewhere in our family tree, and then it grew onto another branch or to a tangent. It is a leftover of several other branches of our human evolution, development, mutation, etc., and so on. But today I'll try to give you the facts that I know them. Remember, this is the Lynch Factor, so everything that you hear is true. 9.2 light years away, there is another planet in the Cygnus star system from Earth. That planet, as green and lush as it once was, started to die because of too much carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide in the system of that planet. Now, this is a kind of a metaphor for Mars. It's going to be soon a metaphor for Earth. So just bear with me. Every planet lives and dies or starts all over again. Very seldom are there any planets that don't. Mars and Venus are the closest to in our solar system, and they are prime examples of overheating or loss of atmosphere. The Earth is in a Goldilocks zone and can remain plush for years, except for one thing, and that's man's arrogance and ability to destroy it. So on and so forth. Getting back to this planet was green, jungle-type environments, very similar to what we have in Brazil or Africa on the equator, a jungle-type environment where a lot of animals could grow. The idea is that for some reason the planet was 25% larger than the Earth, but it had a similar 24-hour cycle. So it had a little bit more minerals, a little bit more development, better gravity, and the Earth was the second best place. There are many planets like this. One species from a higher, denser planet, like Superman, can go to a lower dense planet like Earth. And so in the Pleiadians' mindset, it was a good idea to take Bigfoot off of its original planet and transport it to a likable planet or planets similar for its existence. So that's what they did. 64,000 years ago, they started a redevelopment program. We do the same thing with wolves. If wolves go extinct in a certain area, we will try to bring the wolves back into that area to maintain the equilibrium amongst all the other wildlife. Here, Bigfoot is an anomaly because not only is it a vegetarian, it also loves meat because it has to, because of its body mass. So it required a planet that had several different things, plants and game for it to feed on. So again, 64,000 years ago, the Pleiadians decided to transplant these Bigfoot throughout the galaxy. Earth was one of the planets that they decided to let it run free. And every now and then they would populate, they would die off, or if they overpopulated, then they would be extracted, removed, and sent to another planet. Again, building the immunity of each of those creatures so that they could sustain different environments on different planets. As long as the planet was a little lighter than what they came from or equal to, so there's many exoplanets out there we're discovering that are very much like Earth. So these Bigfoot go and are dropped off with the Pleiadians' blessing, and they're then released to the wild. They then migrate around the United States, coming from the north, let's say Washington State, and they go down the Rocky Mountains to all the volcanoes that were in that area, Mount Shasta, Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, all the way down to Texarkana, and then over to the Mississippi River, cross that, and then they go back up. Many are found in Canada, probably more aggressive in Canada because it's a harsher environment. Just like in Nepal, the Yeti can withstand that environment better than others. The relationship that we have is very similar to the bear. So we have the polar bear in the north, it's white, and we have the brown bear in the south, and it's brown. There are the black bears, the grizzly bears, and so on and so forth. Sometimes they've actually been able to mate and overlap and have offspring of different varieties. Bigfoot is a very similar way as the bear. They eat almost the exact same diet, and they're almost in the exact same environment. So it's not surprisingly that they can survive. Now, all Bigfoot's blood types are negative, from negative O all the way up to negative AB. They're not necessarily from this planet, as anyone with a negative understanding knows that you can't have a civilization of O positive, such as in Peru. Every citizen in Peru is an O positive, and then you have an A negative. There's no such mutation standard for that, not even with cosmic radiation and gamma radiation and things like that won't change the blood type. It has to come from someplace else and do something else. Now the whole other thing is that Bigfoot has 99.9% of the same DNA that I have. And you know that I'm a convolution of many different poorly designed chromosomes, so it came from an environment like mine. Primitive, the human race needed to be modified and genetically enhanced in order for it to survive. So a lot of humans have been tweaked over the years, and that's the whole idea, is to keep the species alive, tweak their DNA, so on and so forth. Now, again, we do this with wolves. We'll soon be doing this with polar bears. We'll soon be doing this with other animals. The whole idea is that then the deposit of the Bigfoot on our planet was a routine maintenance. Their planet started to die and could not support the life that the Bigfoot, or the environment the Bigfoot needed. So the drop-off plan was developed, and they came here. Now throughout time, the Bigfoot wandered around pretty much devoid of mankind. Mankind's development and urban sprawl led to some of the confrontations, such as gold miners and coal prospectors and everything else. These miners, these foresters, were the first into those areas before the rest of the population came in. So they were naturally offended. Here they are dropped off on a foreign planet, and here are some smaller species destroying their habitat. This is not uncommon, whether you talk about the spotted owl or whatever. But they do have a language. The language does vary, and they can communicate with each other with no problem whatsoever. The average male can grow about 10 feet tall and weigh about 399 pounds. The females get up about 8 feet tall. They weigh up to 299 pounds. But believe you me, don't ever tell one that they're overweight. Ever since the Patterson film and beyond, there have been videos, cell phone videos and other videos, as well as footprints and blood and DNA analysis. Melba Ketchum was the first to come out to say what she thought originally was a human thigh muscle, when actually it wasn't. It was just a little bit different. Other blood analysis show that the blood and the genes from that give us directly a 99.9% chance that it is not only not related to us, but it is almost like us, from a very similar genetic tree. Again, we don't know why humans survive so long. We're smaller, we're more susceptible. We don't have a lot, doubtless. We talk about our immune system and activating that and keeping that healthy. But besides that, everyone gets bit by fleas, ticks and chiggers and mosquitoes. We have plagues. The human system isn't quite designed for a lot of the wildlife on this planet. We're still somewhere in that food chain, and they're still going to eat us. We've preserved ourselves in buildings and finer clothes, faster cars, and that has removed us technologically from that time. But still, if you ask any cougar or any polar bear, we're on the menu just like everybody else. The other things are that Bigfoot eats all of its food raw, its vegetables and its meat. Now, you say, well, you get worms or contamination this way. Maybe so, maybe not. Maybe their stomach's acids and enzymes can break this down to where they do not need it to be cooked or even partially sterilized. Bigfoot is seen building structures that it can sleep in, very much like our camping tents, and it's very curious about that. It's very curious about going in to an area, finding humans, observing them, monitoring them, wondering what they're all about, just like we do with them. By day, we own it. We own the planet, we own the world. We work by day in our 8-hour syndrome. But the situation is they own the night, like many other animals. If you go into the jungle at night, it becomes more alive than during the day. During the day, they basically sleep. During the night, they hunt. It is easier. Mankind did this for millennia until we started to redevelop planting seeds, harvesting crops, and we developed the seasons, and we developed the year, we developed the sundial, and we developed time. Bigfoot doesn't understand any of that. He understands the sun is up, the sun is down. He is kind of like a old Californian beach bum. He goes where the weather pleases him, and he gets up when he wants, and he goes to bed when he wants. It could be 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, whenever. Bigfoot is not an anomaly. It is a rescued species on a foreign planet trying to survive. It's like if you take a dog and kick it to the curb and say, "You're on your own, you animal." Well, these Pleiadians do have a high, overinflated idea of themselves, but the idea is the same. Bigfoot is lost. He's trying to find his own kind. He wanders through the woods. He doesn't really belong here, like many of us. So next time, when you're out in the woods and you hear Bigfoot howl or scream, and you don't confuse it with a bunch of foxes or coyotes, maybe you should think about what he feels, what he's thinking. Alone, on a strange and primitive planet that you cannot make any sense out of, and especially cannot make any sense out of the human condition. Very seldom anyone ever tries to put their feet in his shoes, no matter how big they are. They just don't understand. So the next time you're out in the woods and you hear a sound or a noise, and it's not a deer or it's not a coyote or it's not a wolf or whatever, think on how it feels. A foreigner in a foreign land, frightened, afraid, cannot trust. Because everybody's met, most of everybody that's met has a gun. And they know one thing: guns kill. They also know that we eat deer like they eat deer. We eat animals just like they eat animals. But we have a gun and it kills. So they might get a little testy with you, they might get a little mad, a little bit uncomfortable. But I can take anyone from Rhodesia and put them in the same room with you, and the feeling would be the same. I can take anyone from China and put them in a room with you. If you can't speak the language, you don't know what they're all about, you can't communicate very well, it is the same. So give Bigfoot a chance. He believes in you. You should believe in him. Talk to Jeff Melbourne. Jeff has more evidence, physical, than anyone else on the planet. Well, maybe a couple of collectors, but almost everyone is assured that Bigfoot exists. Now getting into my genre, the U.S. government. There have been special operations, black op operations, which the taxpayer has funded for a very long time. And they have found dead Bigfoot, and they have captured dead Bigfoot, and they have autopsied the Bigfoot. And they know, down deep, for a fact, they're not from this planet. There was traps up in the Northwest, Bigfoot traps, they put bananas or bait in there, and some forest ranger would have to go out there and check on it. But the biggest determinant whether Bigfoot exists or not is the fires out west. When the fires started, the Bigfoot had to migrate and travel, just like the cougar, just like the bear, either in the higher lands or back further north, where there is some rain. The forest fires are a great demarcation point in time and resources. The Bigfoot cannot find food if it cannot find plant life, vegetables, berries, or rabbits or deer. It will not be able to survive. It's got to keep moving. So there's no help for these. There was a story about a major fire up in Utah, and that they found something in the woods, but it was hiding, and they thought it was a bear. So a group of rangers went out to try to anesthetize it, put it to sleep to find out what was going on, and they did. They accomplished that. The Bigfoot, they found out later, was anesthetized. He just gave up. He was badly burned, 2nd and 3rd degrees. His hair was burnt off, and he looked like a very tall, normal man, non-circumcised, and just had hair on him. But a lot of it was burned off, so he looked just like a regular guy. Well, the Bigfoot was so afraid, he couldn't quite communicate that there were others also in danger. So a black truck pulls up, probably a Tacoma. How original is that? Tacoma pulls up, actually there's 3 of them. A gentleman gets out, he's in civilian clothing, the others were military, and he goes and talks to the Bigfoot. The Bigfoot tells him that he is badly injured and he has smoke inhalation, and that there are others in the woods that are in the same condition he is. The civilian in the Black Ops operation go and find the other Bigfoot. They nurse their wounds, they bandage them up, neosporin, some little antibiotic shots, and away they went. The Bigfoot, for the first time, met someone he could talk to and could be there to administer aid. Now, this forest ranger who tells the story is definitely retired. But at the same time, it is possible that we can find common ground. And maybe helping, asking, can I help, is our first step in solving a lot of this lack of knowledge, ignorance. Because if we can't communicate with something, we deny its existence. Ideas to ponder, ideas to think about. Bigfoot, afraid, alone, on a strange planet. No wonder he lashes out. No one understands his sense of humor. It's going to take bigger thinking than what we've got so far to find Bigfoot. It's going to take more than that just to be able to communicate with Bigfoot, sit down at the table, have a few bananas. If we think we're the dominant species, if we think we have some brain cells, ask next time, can I help? Can I help? It'll change the entire dynamic and relationship in every confrontation. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. Maybe they just want to be left alone. Whatever that is, we all, as a human species, need to respect and understand that. This has been the Lynch Factor. Thank you for listening, watching. It's been fun.
Whatever your first impression of this footage, there's no in-camera trickery. Examining the film shows that something really walked in front of Patterson's camera. And let's be clear on one thing. This footage either has to be a hoax or the most important piece of wildlife film ever.